Okay, when I came here, today, I was asked if I wanted to give a presentation. I do not have my computer. I don't really have any of the normal equipment I would use or audio software that I would show off or anything like that. So I'm kind of making this up on the fly. This is going to be a little bit of a restriction on what I give. However, what I want to show off, at least a little bit, is how I determine what sounds I need for well, ultimately for a game, but since I'm making this up on the fly, I'm going a little bit a little more modestly. Um, so let's flash back to April. I had just suddenly been not employed. So the website Air Wiggles was hosting a challenge where every day they would give you a clip of a video of a game or something like that, and you would spend about an hour and design the sound that was in that clip. Um, I like that. It gave me a lot of practice flexing some creative skills, but also some practice figuring out what sounds needed to be in things because I hadn't done that in quite a while. I was busy doing technical sound by and large on the last game I worked with at PHL Collective. So, um, anyway, I do have on my website, however, some examples of that, which is why I'm showing it off right now. Okay. Under more. Okay. Share sound. Delightful. Okay. So normally and I found out that when I was doing these sound redesigns, what I would be spending at least half my time on was just figuring out what sounds needed to happen and then spotting where in the video those sounds needed to be cued. I don't have my software here, so I can't show you how I did that. But honestly, that's pretty boring. It's just an issue of syncing where in the video things happen. Sound design basics, though. What you're trying to communicate to the player or the viewer are two things. One, the the environment of the game. That includes everything that's happening on screen, the style of the game, so immersion, but also stylistically what's going on, as well as stuff that needs to be communicated to the player, like what the player's attention should be drawn to. Also, mechanical things like user interface sounds and stuff like that. Okay. What I personally prefer to start with, though, is player movement. Often this is like footsteps or something like that. Footsteps have just about three components to them, roughly speaking. The surface impacts, well, two or three. The actual foot impact, the surface that's being hit, and also the sounds of the rest of the player character moving through an environment. But right now, I'm actually going to show off a clip with cars because, well, that seems to be the easiest. Here, let's play this. It was, I think, the second clip of the month. It was from the game called Cyber Rush. Hopefully the sound works. Hopefully it's not too loud. I haven't tested it. I'm sorry if it does. Okay, so we've got a bunch of stuff happening in that clip, and none of it's characters walking around the scene. We do, however, have a bunch of things that are interacting with the environment. We have the player character. We've got a bunch of non-player character cars. We've got player power-ups and things hitting other things, which is to say lasers hitting cars and cars exploding. Okay, so let's break down what the player character needs. The player character has a basic sound for its movement, which is a motor sound. It's something that needs to be loopable, which is going to be tough to design, but let's wait on that. We'll leave it for future Alex to get frustrated trying to loop. So there's that. That sound is going to need to be manipulated in some way for turning left and right. Kind of like the car that just drove by and you probably couldn't hear because Zoom's noise protection is actually pretty decent. That's probably just going to be pitch manipulation, but if it were something that isn't that, it's going to be a separate sound entirely. And accelerating. If the car hits something, which it does not in this clip, then you're going to need that sound. Okay, so there's player character movement, non-player character movement. We have cars driving by the player character. We have police cars there, usually that, and we've got a non-player character cars as well. Those are going to need their own distinct motors, and police probably should have a siren. I didn't put one on there. That's probably because I only had an hour to do this. And those all need to be processed the right way. A game engine would do that. This is not in a game engine, so I needed to manually add the Doppler effect to each one of them. I probably used the Doppler plugin. Can't remember off the top of my head. My computer's not in front of me at the moment. So there's that. And that takes care of the player movement. Now, player actions, player power-ups, things like that. We have the player picking up a power-up, which I created a UI sound for. We have the player character using that power up, which actually has a bunch of sub sounds in it. Metal attaching to the player character, but let's just call that one sound because I'm probably running down of time already. So we have that. We have player character using that power up. There's a laser involved, shooting that. I've already talked about the non-player character blowing up, so we've already got that. So we have all of those now. There's also in there a thing that I noticed almost right at the end of designing it, which was there are points picked up by the player for a close call, whatever that is in the game. I don't know. I haven't played the game. I'm just looking at this clip was just looking at this clip for the first time. So I had to design something for that. Fortunately, I was also able to integrate that with the sound of the non-player character passing by. I added a car horn, Dopplered that. We've got an extra sound for that there. Now, something I didn't need to worry about, but in almost every other situation, and especially if I were actually designing sound for this game, would be an issue is background sounds. That was all covered up by the sound of traffic, all the sounds of the, in fact, I probably did have a background sound of traffic when I was designing it. Backgrounds are incredibly important, often ignored, but not as important if I'm designing something with a very loud player character in mind. Anyway, so why does this matter to any of the people who are watching this who are likely not actually audio people? By explaining this, I hope to at least slightly get across my ideas for how to find those sounds, simply to give you a better idea of what sounds you might need for your game. It is almost certainly, from my experience as a sound designer coming to games, going to be more sounds than you notice. But hopefully that gives a at least brief look at the sounds that briefly expands the idea of the sounds that you are going to notice. And if not, just a TLDR or TLDL, TLDV, whatever. The sounds that you need are all of the things happening on screen and all of the things happening off screen, which includes things hitting other things. It includes the backgrounds, so things that you won't know are hitting other things or anything like that. And it also means the things you need to draw the player's attention to, which are sometimes diegetic, such as some of that movement. It's sometimes non-diegetic, like user interface sounds, like power-up pickups or things like that. There's a lot to consider, but hopefully that helps with that. I'm just curious, how much time was that? Cool. I think it was about 5 minutes. Anyway, so should I look at chat for questions? Because anyone have any questions?
Questions? Just saying. I don't know if I have a question, but it's come up before. Right. I think I heard like if a sound designer is doing their job correctly, kind of don't notice it all the time. You know? So I mean, I like seeing just how much you have to put into all of that to make it sound right.
Yeah, and that's to some degree that's an interesting idea of a sound design. If the sound department's doing their job correctly, it's not noticeable. That's sometimes true and sometimes not. But yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes into all of these, and as it was a short talk, I can't even get into anywhere near all of this stuff. Let's see. So that's Rob. How often do the designer and the sound designer disagree on the number of sound effect sources? How much how much am I asking you to pay me for different sound effect sources? I will tell you that I haven't really run into anyone disagreeing with my own assessment of these. But I will say that whenever anyone has come to me with a list of, as I said earlier, whenever anyone has come to me with a list of sounds that they need in their game, it is inevitably nowhere near the amount of sounds that I see that they need in their game, because they are familiar with the interactions that they have created and focused on creating in their game, where their attention's already been brought. Whereas I'm at least theoretically looking more broadly than that. Okay. Any other questions, thoughts, or anything like that? Doesn't seem it. So that brings us to about 9 o'clock.